Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Art Brooks, a not-so-immediate past president of the club. Our speaker today is the Honorable Charles F. Dunbar, a retired career diplomat who has had the world's experience really in the part of the country that he will speak to us today about, which he refers to as Af-Pak or Af-Pak, new name, same crisis. Ambassador Dunbar is uniquely well qualified to address us about this important region. He has served as U.S. ambassador both to Yemen and to Qatar, and has served as a senior diplomat in Afghanistan, Mauritania, Algeria, Morocco, and Iran. In the 90s, of course, he led our own Cleveland Council on World Affairs and was a great friend of the City Club. Will Rogers defined diplomacy as the art of saying, "Nice doggy," while looking for a rock. This was facetious, of course, but it calls our attention to the mixture of soft and hard power that characterizes our relationships around the world. Unlike the relative simplicity of our foreign policy during the Cold War, the complexities of the global village today can confound even the most careful observer. As Calvin Trillin noted some years back, a citizen has trouble keeping track of why we may obliterate Iraq. Some have even suggested that a coherent and explainable foreign policy may be illusory anyway, in view of the unpredictability of events in real time. In any case, we are enormously fortunate today to have with us an informed and experienced guide to the complex state of things today in the Af-Pak region. Please join me in welcoming back to Cleveland our good friend, Ambassador Charles Dunbar.
It's a great honor to be back in Cleveland, and a great honor to be addressing the City Club before so many old friends and people that I wish I had known. My wife and I live in Brunswick, Maine, and one of our many links to Cleveland is via the Friday Forum, which is broadcast regularly by our public radio station. I lived here in Cleveland for 8 years in the 1990s as president of the Cleveland Council on World Affairs. And while I am a New Englander by birth, I used to enjoy the chance to tell people who came from that part of the world that the Cleveland Orchestra was number one. Some of them were unbelieving and thought that I had drunk too much water from Lake Erie. Some of them were grim, but admitted it. And those who loved classical music were really pleased to share a moment with me on the beauties of the Cleveland Orchestra. On another front, my childhood loyalty to the Celtics and the Red Sox remained. Last year, I bit my nails down to the quick and somewhat beyond. I remember sitting in a coffee shop in Boston and watching the 7th game of the semifinals of the NBA, the Eastern Conference semifinals, when LeBron James almost derailed the Celtics' drive to the title. I think 2009 clearly will be the year of the Cavalier and the emergence of the next Michael Jordan. And I very much hope that I'm right. I'd like to say just a word or two about Mike Michelson, who was one of the people I'm very sorry that I never had an opportunity to meet. There is a natural segue here, because I understand that Mike played basketball with my old friends Art Brooks and Bob Belenker, and with my newer friends, Bill Barnard, Park Goodist, I haven't got that right, sorry, Geist, excuse me, and Dean Cox. A formidable five, I should think. I knew Art and Bob much better as a result of various singing endeavors that we were involved in. I understand that, that Mike was a contrarian, and that he was also an honorable and humble man, and that he was an opinion-seeking man. If you didn't have an opinion on something, then he would give you his, but that separates him from much of Washington, which is that Washington doesn't really care what your opinion is, but they care a lot what their own is, and they give it frequently. This is going to be a pretty grim talk about a pretty grim subject. I think there is some light at the end of some of the tunnels, and that it may not be the light of the approaching train. And I guess I would say to Mike Michelson, because I think he shares this sentiment, and about my subject, that the answer simply is yes, we can. And so with that point, and with great honor to be the first speaker in the Mike Michelson series, let me go on to my talk. Well, as I just said, the news from the area around the so-called northwest frontier that fails to separate Afghanistan and Pakistan is grim, with each day seeming to add yet another dimension to the problems faced by the Afghan and Pakistani societies and by those who support them. I could spend several multipliers of the time allotted to me for my talk describing and analyzing those problems and the incredibly complex challenge that they represent, first and foremost for the Afghans and the Pakistanis, but also for their friends in the what is called the international community, and in a strong position in that community is the Obama administration. The president made it clear from the beginning that he intends to address that challenge, and I think he is right to do so. So in my talk, I think I will first describe what I see as the main elements of the problem, and then move on to what, in my opinion, are the elements that should be involved in a solution. If there is time, and I'm very conscious of the clock that faces me, I will say a few words about what I think of the prospects for success. I may actually not do that for a variety of reasons. I think when we start speaking about the problems, and we could go on forever, and I will not go on forever, it's important to keep two dates in mind. The first one is November 12, 1893, and the second one is July 17, 1973. And I will elaborate on what those two dates are. They're not ones that you obviously think about. People who read about Afghanistan know that it was set up in 1747, and they know that the Soviet Union invaded on December 27 of 1980, and a lot of them know about the date in October. I believe it's also the 11th in 2001, when the United States began its brilliantly successful assault on the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. November 12, 1893 is the day on which a senior British official named Sir Mortimer Durand, who at that time was the Foreign Secretary of the British India, the British Raj in India,